Welcome on Texas football. I'm Bobby Burton, your host, joined by CJ Vogel. We're going to be talking about the very latest on Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers and his availability for the game tomorrow in College Station. CJ and I both talked to sources earlier today. CJ, it looks like Quinn Ewers likely to give it a go. Steve Sarkisian put him as probable on the injury report, the last one available to us. And we're hearing that Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of South Lake, Texas, likely to give it a go.
Yeah, that's the expectation out of Austin is Quinn Ewers will be the quarterback to at least start the game for the Texas Longhorns in that first game against Texas A&M in 13 years. This is a big moment for Quinn, one that he's been waiting for, one that he's excited to be the quarterback for. Having talked to him a little bit about this rivalry, the return of it, what this meant as a kid that grew up watching the Longhorns. Of course, to be that first quarterback to lead Texas onto the field at Kyle Field, that means something to him. However, Bobby, and this is where kind of the concern comes in, what's the health of Quinn Ewers going to be, right? How healthy will that ankle truly be? That's going to be pretty interesting to see if he's able to play at 100%, close to 100%, or make it all the way through the game, which is certainly worth questioning at the moment.
Yeah, it really is, CJ. I tell you what is interesting here as it relates to yours. We know, and you mentioned his desire and understanding, and when he's grown up as a little kid, he wanted to play in this game. So it's going to be up to Steve Sarkisian if Quinn Ewers can't go. I'll put it that way. But hope that this works out for Quinn and for the Longhorns. Suffered an ankle injury against Kentucky when he got kind of a hip drop tackle on the lower leg in the second quarter. It's important to know that he actually played really well the rest of the second quarter. But then as the injury stiffened up over halftime, the third and fourth quarter, he was very much limited in trying to get things going in the right direction. Had some hard times doing that in the third quarter in particular with the fumble return for a touchdown against him. Did live up to it in the fourth quarter a little bit, though, and was just clean. Played a clean game the rest of the way. We'll see what that means overall. A lot of people out there saying we'll see Arch Manning in this game. Entirely possible, CJ. We know that Arch got reps in practice just like he does all the time, some with the ones early in the week, etc. What are your thoughts on if the Longhorns do have to go to number 16, Arch Manning?
Yeah, before then, I want to kind of go through the timeline of Quinn and his injury, right, Bobby? I mean, he gets dinged up in the second half. He went through all that. He leaves the facility Saturday evening after that game against Kentucky in a boot. It was unbeknownst at the time to reporters. They did a good job of hiding it, obviously, but he was in a boot Saturday night. He was in a boot Sunday, underwent testing. I believe it was reported elsewhere that, it was a MRI that was undergone by Quinn Ewers and the Texas training staff as well. He practiced Monday, not fully. He was on the practice field. He did go through as much as he could. Of course, it was only about a walk-through level practice Monday for the Longhorns, who practiced in the afternoon. Tuesday, pads were on. He did practice again. Still, those first 2 days, I was told he was very limited. In fact, mobility, not necessarily always a strength of Quinn Ewers, but one in which if there was a game Monday or Tuesday, I don't think you would have seen him on the field. Wednesday, I was told it was a little bit better. I was told Thursday, again, that final tune-up on Thanksgiving Day, that Quinn Ewers was looking better. Still, it was Arch Manning who received some level of first-team snaps with the offense. To the point in your question, should Arch Manning be the one that has to lead Texas into Kyle Field and win this game for the Longhorns? I think it comes down to the mental maturity. That's a much different environment than he's seen already this year, right? He did not see a snap in Michigan when Texas went up to Ann Arbor earlier this year. He's not taken a road snap at all, in fact, as a Texas Longhorn. So very intriguing to see if he's able to sustain that level of play that we've seen at DKR this year, if he's asked or if his number is called upon to walk into Kyle Field and lead the Texas offense the way that we've seen him lead it already this season.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Now, what about other injuries real quick? Isaiah Bond and DeAndre Moore both left off the injury report. That means that they're expected to be full go, two of the better receivers for the Longhorns.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been the word coming out of Austin this week, as well as I've been talking to sources around the program. I was told even coming into last week, there would be some sort of limitation with Isaiah Bond, but come to find out it wasn't due to injury per se. So I'm of the belief that Isaiah Bond is 100%. I'm of the belief that DeAndre Moore, who's been dealing with a bit of a shoulder, a bit of a lower body ding. I believe he had the hip contusion earlier in the season as well. Those are lingering issues, and in Week 14, it's hard to find a healthy, 100% healthy football player in all of college football. But right now, going into College Station on Saturday, the expectation is that the two wide receivers will be fully healthy for the Longhorns when they face Texas A&M.
What about we've heard that Trey Weiser couldn't take the pounding, but that's exactly what he did last week in that game against Kentucky. Weiser rushing for 150 plus yards, 25 plus carries, a tremendous game overall. He's expected to be ready to go as well, and no change there to that. But he is coming off a heavy usage game. Just a tremendous game overall. What are your thoughts on Trey Weiser and what he's going to be able to bring to the Longhorns tomorrow against Texas A&M?
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if you saw another 25 carry game from Trey Weiser. Of course, I'm a big fan of Trey's game, but you look at the body and you think, okay, how can he sustain 55 to 60 hits? Because hey, if you're going to be on the field that much, Bobby, you're probably going to see 6 or 7 targets out of the backfield if Quinn Ewers is the quarterback. That's just been the constant so far with the Texas passing attack. With the running backs and the tight ends this year, they see a lot of targets, a lot of volume share so far. So you have to account in probably 5 touches in the passing game as well. I would be surprised if you saw that many touches again this weekend. But hey, with the way that there's kind of some doubt or at least some uncertainty in terms of the confidence or reliability in the other running backs at the moment to hold on to the rock, you have to go with the hot hand. You have to perform and play and act like this is a game where your playoff future is at stake. And right now, if you want to win the SEC championship like Sarkisian does, and that's the goal coming into this year, this is a game where you have to go with the hot hand and the reliable hand. And right now, both of those hands belong to Trey Weiser.
They really do. And you mentioned it both with Quinn and Trey Weiser, something that they bring that you may worry about if it's Arch Manning and Jaden Blue, perhaps, or even Jarrett Gibson, is ball security.
Yes.
Right, for both of them. That is a priority in this game. You do not want to give A&M short fields or turn the ball over. That's a recipe for a really bad situation for the Longhorns. Certainly one of that. Another guy that we expect tomorrow to really play a big role in this game and help Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense is Gunnar Helm. Young man has just had a tremendous season. I don't know if he got left off the Mackey Award or the other guys just had better stats, but he has certainly been someone that has stepped up his senior season and played above what we thought he would. He looks to be a key part of this Texas offense tomorrow.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, Bobby, it looked like Gunnar Helm was going to be the safety blanket for Quinn Ewers. And I think as the years evolved, he's become more of that, more than that, more than a guy on as a third read he can find and pray that he gets 6 or 7 yards. He's a guy that he looks to as a first option. He's a guy that he has the utmost reliable, confidence in. And Gunnar Helm has been proven to maybe exceed expectations of anybody in the country at the tight end spot this season. The Mackey Award snub, I would say he's in that conversation as maybe that 4th or 5th guy, maybe the guy that should have been in the conversation with the finalists as well. So Gunnar Helm's as reliable as they get for Quinn Ewers. They have that camaraderie. They have that connection against a guy like Torian York, who's a little bit smaller on the undersized at the linebacker position. Who knows if Scooby Williams will be at 100%. I know that that's one that Texas is monitoring as well, a guy that got dinged up late in that game last week for Texas A&M. If there's some sort of advantage in the middle of the field, it goes straight to Gunnar Helm, and Texas will look to exploit that as they have with several different opponents already this year, Kentucky being the most recent.
Yeah, I tell you what, they do look to Gunnar Helm to provide that pop in the short passing game over the middle. Sometimes they use the backs. Sark's moved it around a little bit. Another thing Quinn Ewers gives Texas, in my opinion, at quarterback, is that Quinn has won games this year in a variety of ways as the quarterback. Sometimes it's been him throwing the ball all over the place, scoring touchdowns, period. Sometimes it's just him running the offense and getting Texas into the right play. Sometimes it's the short passing game, which dominates. You got to recognize Texas 10-1 Steve Sarkisian knows that his veteran quarterback gives him a variety of paths to victory. I'm not so sure Arch Manning does that, at least not at this stage in his career. All right, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, and then we're going to go over and talk a little bit of defense right now. I want to talk to you about thecarrotconcierge.com. Make sure you take care of the woman in your life with a great gift. Jody Reynolds is a personal jeweler. She is the Carrot Concierge right there with an office in Westlake. Jody focuses on helping men purchase that special gift for the woman in their life. You can use the QR code on the screen to see even more, or visit her on her Instagram or her website. Jody takes pride in providing personal service. She takes the extra step to make sure your lady gets exactly what she wants. And because she doesn't have the overhead of a storefront, she often can get higher quality inventory at lower prices, as much as 30% less. So if you're looking for a Christmas gift, it is right around the corner. It's that time of year. Jody has a variety of bracelets, rings, necklaces, and more. All beautiful jewelry, all possibly much less than you'd pay at a regular jewelry store, and personalized for you and yours. Check out thecarrotconcierge.com. Visit her website or give her a call or text and take care of that special someone in your life. Thanks, Jody, for your sponsorship. All right. We mentioned that Gunnar Helm might have been, and I quote, use that in quotes, disrespected for the Mackey Award. Anthony Hill likely was for the Butkus. The young sophomore at the University of Texas has had a whale of a year in his second season as a starter.
Oh, he's lived up to that 5-star billing. You see 79 tackles. He has 15 tackles for a loss on the graphic there. But absolutely has lived up to every bit of what you've expected him to be in year 2 in this PK system. Of course, it took him some time to really get his feet wet last year. This year, as quote-unquote the guy in this defense, I think there's been a number of instances where you could look at and say against the biggest opponents, he's played his best football. Michigan, specifically Oklahoma, he's had game-breaking moments all over the field, specifically most recently against Kentucky, where, man, it just felt like it was tackle for loss after tackle for loss after tackle for loss. The way that you can move him around and create mismatches off the edge, whether it be pairing with a Trey Moore or Colin Simmons, that's an all sorts of time game breaker. And I think right now, Bobby, going into a game where a running quarterback, a mobile quarterback is the biggest task at hand for the Texas defense, Anthony Hill is going to have a big-time game for me as well. I was speaking with a source earlier this week, Bobby, in fact. I said, it doesn't really matter. And I say this kind of just echoing what I heard in this conversation. It doesn't necessarily matter the health of Quinn Ewers, to which maybe I disagree with. But with the way that this defense has been rolling, the way that they've been preparing in practice, that's where all the confidence lies right now, at least in this conversation. Again, it's a one-off, and I would certainly prefer Quinn Ewers to be completely healthy for this game. But the way that this defense is playing and the way that they have confidence amongst themselves, whether it be a second-string guy like Jelani McDonald coming in, Leon Glafau playing up to his standards, Jermaine Lole, the snaps that he's been getting have been mattering more and more as of late. There's confidence all across the field right now on that defensive side of the ball. And that's right now the identity of this team going on the road to College Station, making sure that they travel and play well on the road. That's the utmost importance at the moment. And there's a lot of confidence oozing out of Austin as they make the trip over to College Station.
I tell you what, Trey Zoon, the offensive lineman for Texas A&M, did himself no favors with his running back or his quarterback after making that statement about Anthony Hill. We'll see exactly what the young man from Denton has in store for the Aggies tomorrow. Question for you, CJ, as it relates to the rest of the defense. We saw those 7.5 sacks for Anthony Hill. Colin Simmons, the true freshman, also getting up there in the sacks. Trey Moore's come on here in the second half of the season. We've seen more and more of Ethan Burke. Alfred Collins having a good year as well. Do you expect this Texas defensive front to be able to get after Texas A&M in the passing game? Or do you expect Texas to be able to get A&M behind the chains a little bit tomorrow night? Because I think that's going to be very important as well.
I definitely agree. And look, you've had 6 sacks in each of the last 2 contests. And coming into the year, I might have expected if Texas was playing this way to face that Texas A&M offensive line, I probably would have said something very similar. 5, 6 sacks. That probably would have been my expectation. But I have to tip my cap to the A&M offensive line. And maybe it's Marcel Reed making them look a little bit better with his sack evasion, mobility, that where you don't see those numbers as high as maybe you thought coming into the season. So I have to tip my hat to both of them, I guess. But tackles for loss have to be of the utmost importance for the Longhorns, of course, to keep A&M behind the chains, to keep them out of that option read look on second and third and short, I think is very important. I don't mean that pun as a pun there, Bobby, but in the instance where you can certainly sit back and say, I know that Texas A&M is going to throw the rock. That NASCAR package out there for Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, even in Anthony Hill to get after the quarterback. That's where you'll find success, and that's where you'll have guys like Michael Taff and Andrew Makuba sitting in the middle of the field looking to pick a ball off or two. That's going to be a game-changing package in my eyes for the Texas Longhorns on Saturday night.
I remember this, and I've mentioned this multiple times. Colin Klein, the former Kansas State quarterback, is the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M nowadays. And if you recall ever playing Kansas State back in the day, they were death by 1,000 cuts on their offense. They wanted to get in that third and short and do exactly what you're talking about, give their quarterback a run pass option of sorts. You know that at some level, that's going to be a big piece of the game plan for the Aggies. Last thing I want to talk about here before I let you go, CJ, and I know you got a high school football game to get to later tonight. Question for you, special teams. How concerned are you with Texas's special teams right now? Because the Aggies, I think, have a more consistent kicker right now and a more consistent punter. And they've had Terry Bussey almost break a couple this year. Could this be one of those hidden factors in the game tomorrow night?
I absolutely think so. And this is a game where if Texas goes anything less than 100% on field goal kicks, I start to get a little bit worried. And Auburn, for as consistent as he was a year ago, there's been some moments this year which have made you kind of question, how reliable will he be? How aggressive will Steve Sarkisian be as a result, depending on where they are in the field on a fourth down and what the down looks like? I do think this is a game where a missed field goal counts just as much as a turnover, right? A turnover on downs counts just as much as a fumble. And that's where you keep points off the board and put all that momentum back to Texas A&M. We've seen it before, Bobby. 2023, the Red River Shootout. Texas and Oklahoma, both Venables and Sarkisian, came out in that game flying on special teams. And that's a high-emotion game where momentum means a lot. I look for a punt return, maybe a reverse, maybe some sort of trickeration. As long as the execution's there, you can look at it and say that was a moment for momentum to quiet the A&M field. I think that a punt block call is in order for Jeff Banks, which we've not seen one necessarily get all too close this year. That's been a staple of Jeff Banks' special teams at Texas. But protection has to be key and coverage has to be key, because I believe you mentioned it last week, Bobby, after Kentucky. Barron Brown was pretty close to getting loose on a kickoff return. Terry Bussey just as electric, 5-star pedigree. That cannot be a game-changing moment for Texas A&M if they're able to take advantage of a kickoff or punt return.
All right, speaking with CJ Vogel of On Texas Football, this is a special edition talking about Quinn Ewers' health and what we know of that thus far, as well as talking about the rest of the game as well. CJ, just to sum it up for everyone, we believe Quinn Ewers will start tomorrow for the Longhorns. His degree of health, we shall see. I think that's one of the things I was told today. Anybody second guessing or thinking that it's going to end up one way or the other, we're going to have to wait and see, because nobody truly knows at this point in time. And Texas is not divulging anything more than just that. Quinn Ewers probable for tomorrow night. All right, CJ, you have anything else you want to add before you head to a game and then head down to Aggie Land tomorrow morning?
I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. I expect a low-scoring game, and this is the Texas defense's time to shine and solidify themselves as the number one defense in the country. If there's a question at quarterback, Sarkisian has to have the stones, Bobby. He has to have the stones to make the change, because this is a game you cannot lose, not just for your sake as a college football team, but for recruiting and future implications inside the state of Texas. You don't want Mike Elko to have that leg up on you the way that Brent Venables did in year one. This is a moment in my eyes where a change has to be made if a change is necessary.
Brent Venables lost 49-0 in his first game against Steve Sarkisian. So hopefully it is like Brent Venables. The second year, though, I agree with you. very, very much. All right, that's CJ Vogel. Thank you so much, CJ, for talking this afternoon, early evening here as we wind down to a renewed rivalry, 13 years in the making. Longhorns going to Texas A&M tomorrow. Quinn Ewers expected to start. For CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been a special report of On Texas Football. Hook 'em.